Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, good friend and the guy behind the Loaded Mike podcast and also the author of the Good Gun Bad Guy series of books, Dan Was. Dan, thanks for coming along today, man.
Thanks, Paul. Love to be here. It's great. Always a great time.
So let's get started right. Well, let me mention before we do, we're experimenting with a new system of broadcast, and if you are watching us on the Facebook page for Polite Society Podcast or the YouTube stream for Polite Society Podcast, you can comment on that live video, and we'll get those comments, get them put on the air. If you're watching anywhere else, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. And something new today, Facebook and YouTube users ought to be able to see the others' comments. Usually we have a lot more YouTube comments than we do Facebook comments. Now you should be able to see the YouTube comments on Facebook and the Facebook comments on YouTube. And I will be able to put any of those comments up on the air. Let me go ahead and finish getting the... there we go, and turn that one on. So Dan, let's get, first of all, we were talking pre-show when we were getting ready to do this. You've apparently had some issues with the feed for the Loaded Mike. What's going on with that, man?
Well, I am proud and happy to say that we are no longer under the thumb of the communist YouTube. We have a show called Loaded Mike. If people haven't seen it, go to loadedmike.com. But what we did was we had an episode about a year ago that triggered the anti-free speech platform to want to ban us. And they did. So they wiped my Loaded Mike show right off YouTube. It was a show that we talked about January 6th, and I had the director of one of the movies and stuff, and we talked about it, and we basically told the truth, and they didn't like that. So anyway, so we've been banned, but we are migrated now over to Rumble, and it's kind of, at first it's like, oh wow, that's kind of weird. We lost a whole big audience now. But it's a bit liberating, too, at the same time, because you learn that you don't want to be in those areas where they don't appreciate your work anyway. And I'm not about, if anybody knows me, they know I'm not about to pretend and not use whatever speech I want to use. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to speak my mind. And, unfortunately, when you have some people running the show that don't like that, they will ban you. That's okay. We're over at Rumble, at loadedmike.com, and John Petrolino, our friend and fellow Second Amendment advocate and writer for Bearing Arms, he wrote a fantastic article talking about the situation. So we're very thankful to John. The banned episode, by the way, can be found at Rumble. If you go to Loaded Mike at Rumble, you'll be able to see the actual episode that was banned and that started all the controversy.
I have not read the full article yet. I pulled it up literally minutes, like 2 minutes before the start of the show, and I have started to read it, but I haven't finished it. And in the process of that, I also have been exploring putting us on Rumble. So,
well, I can tell you a little bit what happened. It's kind of it was a great story. The past couple weeks have been fantastic because we had Charlie Cook and John Petrolino at our studio, the Wasp Media Studio in New York, and we shot an episode of the Loaded Mike, which is a two-part episode. Well, John and Charlie came. we smoked cigars. We had a blast. We went out to lunch. It was a great time. And then also my co-host, John Chiara and Anthony Diso, were there. So we had a fantastic time. The guys are great. And we talked about a lot of this stuff. And then, ironically, the show gets pulled from YouTube right after that. And I kind of knew it would happen because, when you speak the truth, there are certain elements that don't like it. And that's why, I'm so thankful now that, Elon Musk has taken over Twitter. Maybe someone will come in and buy Facebook. Who knows what's going to happen here? But I think we will get back to free speech. But my motto is, don't compromise and never compromise your speech.
Yeah.
That's the way I've always kind of speak your mind.
Get a couple comments in here. This is going to take a left turn for us because it's nothing I plan to talk about, but you and I are so good off the cuff that I think we got to be able to handle this real quick. And I'm already getting, wow. Yeah, let's just get to the comments here. First, Diane over on the Facebook side says, Merry Christmas to Paul and Dan. Well, thank you, Diane.
Thank you,
Merry
Diane.
Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, Diane. Thank you.
Greg Rock, also on the Facebook side, gives the switchboard for the U.S. Capitol. Vote no for the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill with gun control inside of it. Let me go ahead and switch here and put that up. Yeah, there's the U.S. Capitol switchboard number as well. Dan, I'm not specific on what gun control is in that bill, although I would not surprise me to find things like national safe storage and maybe a national red flag in there. But $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, they passed the NDAA last week, thankfully without any gun control in it, but we've got another 2 weeks before the new Congress takes effect. We've still got to work.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we had some Republicans vote for that. And as far as the gun control stuff in it, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be surprised. And the way Biden's been pushing for more of this so-called assault weapons ban, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that in there. It's just, I can't believe, my biggest struggle with all this is that Republicans actually support this. And it was up over 4,000 pages, and they're given like 72 hours to read it. It's unbelievable, this stuff. And Republicans go along with it. Okay, all right, let's do it. Christmas is almost here. I don't want to be stuck up here in D.C. for Christmas. So these Republicans who are supposed to have our back, they don't. They vote for this stuff along with the Democrats. We're voting with Democrats. This is insanity. These people need to be stopped.
They just want to get out of there, and so they don't. And let's face it, senators have huge staffs, and House reps have a staff. It's not as big as a senator's staff. Even 4,000 pages, if you spread it over a staff, can be read, can be digested. And one person's not going to go through all that, but over a whole staff, right. One of your staffers might go through a couple hundred pages and find this and say, hey, Mr. Representative or Mr. Senator or Miss Senator or Representative, you need to look at this. This is what you would be voting for. I will have to do some research. I do not know how big a House member's staff is, but I would imagine it's at least a dozen people. And senators' staffs are much bigger than that.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. If you... Oh, and by the way, so here's an example. The Good Gun, Bad Guy book, and there's the shameless promotion. This is about 256 pages. Now, how long do you think it would take you to read this book? And it takes a little while. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm reading a book, I can. If I'm reading at night, sometimes I'll get through a couple pages and I've fallen asleep. But how many people do you need to read 4,000 pages? To me, it sounds like a lot, and I would think you'd have to have a lot of people. But they'd have to be sitting there all day reading, I would think, right?
Yeah, they would. But let me reach over here just a second. Turn that off because I can start to hear it coming back at me. I had to turn a fan off. Yes, it's going to take a while. It depends on how fast each person reads and how much they're assigned. I'm looking. I've got a different book here.
Do they get it digitally? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a different book right here. I've got decoding. Yes. Yeah. It doesn't show up well on a green screen, but I've got decoding firearms sitting here. This one is 262 pages, and it took me a couple days to get through it, of several hours a day. So
yeah, that's what I mean. You got to put some time in.
Yeah. Let's go back to comments here. I quite literally, this came in just as we were going live. Just added you as a subscriber on Rumble. So, very cool.
Excellent. Thank you.
Let's see here. 500 Magnum says Donald Trump gave a big speech about restoring the First Amendment. And
here's another thing. That 500 Magnum just made me think of something. This whole attack on free speech by leftists who run these organizations, it does sting at first. When you get banned off something, people have been banned off Facebook and other things, and it does sting. I got to admit, because we become used to this stuff as part of our communication. But the good news is that us conservatives, the ones who are getting banned, are becoming stronger, and we're becoming more self-reliant, and we're starting to find other ways. For instance, all our websites are on a website hosting company that is very friendly to conservatives. So we've moved from I'm not going to say any names, but from some of the other hosting companies. So you become more resilient. We become stronger. We become more self-sufficient, and we don't have to rely on the leftist mindset and the leftist people for our internet. So what that means is that we will start to develop our own infrastructure as conservatives, and I really think it's going to take some time, but I think that's going to make us stronger.
I would agree. And these are, and this is a conversation that's happened many times. It probably will happen many more times. These are all private companies. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube are the big ones. However, we can also go to places like Rumble that really promote free speech. Twitter now says they are really promoting free speech. I think the popularity, and eventually, my libertarian self says, eventually the market will decide who's going to rule. And I think the start, if they can keep on top of technology, I think the startups have a huge advantage by really promoting free speech. And the other thing is that they can stay out of regulations. The government may want to step in there, but I want to, and let me get. I want one more comment, and we're going to move to our next topic. Our first topic that I wanted to talk about you today. 500 Magnum. Speaking of your book, that's a nice 1911 on the book. So let's. There we go.
Oh, where are we here? Everything's backwards.
There you go.
Can you get a good focus on that?
Yeah, it's we can see it just fine. Just fine. That is
so. That's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that gun, and this is the book that Amanda Suffolk said she was reading on a plane, and the woman sitting next to her wanted to move seats because Amanda had this book, and she was reading it, and this very picture of this 1911 scared the hell out of this woman on a plane. This is what happens when people can't think for themselves and they are controlled by an anti-gun media spewing propaganda and rhetoric. So, but yeah, beautiful 1911 there. So, there you go.
This past spring, I think it was in February, so it's coming up on a year ago, Susan was on her way down to a DC Project function in Florida, and she was wearing her Educate Not Legislate DC Project hoodie, and of course it's teal, and it does have, as part of the Educate Not Legislate, it does have an AR on it, and she booked coach, just regular coach seats to go down there, and apparently I wish I could get her in here. She's in the next room, but it's really, really tight where I'm at. As the plane is getting ready to depart Sioux Falls, the dude next to Susan calls a flight attendant and wants Susan removed from the plane because of her shirt, because of her Educate Not Legislate shirt.
She should.
The flight attendant said to Susan, "Ma'am, could you come with me, please, for a moment?" And Susan thought she might be going to be kicked off the plane. No, they were moving Susan to first class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
wow,
she could still. It was across the aisle, so she could look right over her shoulder and give a big smile to that guy that didn't want to sit next to her.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Those people, and that's the stuff that I write about a lot. It's that whole mindset, that whole thought process, that these people really live in this world, in this fantasy world of irrational gun fear, and it's all created by the anti-gun lobby and politicians and the the left-wing media. It's part of a system. It's part of creating a society of anti-gun people or non-gun owners, and getting them and encouraging them and coercing them into supporting gun control laws. So I'm not surprised, and I see it all the time, people scared of pictures of guns. People are scared of pictures of guns. Did you ever think that would actually be a thing? People are scared of a photograph of a gun.
Well, and I don't know that they're scared of the photograph. They just want the person that's promoting that punished, is what they want.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. They do, and they do believe in punishment. That's another part of the problem, is that they want to punish people for not thinking like them.
Yeah,
unbelievable. This is not what America was about. This is totalitarianism. This is, people. Those people should move. They should be deported, or they should move to another country where that sort of thing, like China. Go to China, live there, where you're told what to do and everybody thinks the same. Or if they don't think the same, you won't hear about it because
they're just gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
500
America. It didn't work like that in America.
Yeah, 500 Magnum says people unfortunately judge what they fear and don't understand. And then Larry Beeson comes back with, and they breed.
Oh, yeah.
So
unfortunately, Larry, they do breed. Yes, they do. Well, and here's another interesting thing, which is kind of counteracts their whole thing. A lot of these same people are not having children because they don't want to bring children into this world of bad climate and all this other stuff. So I love when I hear, I refuse to get to have children, and then you have some people being fixed, so they can't, and they're proud of that. And I got to say, well, yeah, the less breeding we have from that portion of society, the better we're going to be in the future.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to. We've only got 10 minutes left. I want to get into a Dan Was article over on AmmoLand. This one, when did this drop? This dropped yesterday. You wrote about Columbus, Ohio. Could you fill us in a little bit about that, about what's going on with Columbus?
Okay, so the city of Columbus, it's kind of a long story. They went back and forth with the state, back and forth with lawsuits and appeals and all sorts of stuff. The state of Ohio had this thing called the Firearms Uniformity Act, and they passed this law in 2006, which basically said, lower cities, counties, and towns can't create gun laws that override the state's constitution and the state's gun laws. Well, the city of Columbus is doing exactly that. They're pushing forward magazine capacity restrictions and so-called assault weapons bans and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the state of Ohio is suing the city of Columbus. And the interesting thing that and you can find my article on AmmoLand. Go to AmmoLand and search my name, Dan Was. The interesting thing is the state is using the historical tradition precedent that was written by Judge Clarence Thomas in the recent Bruen case, and the state is using that now as precedence to kill the bill that's being pushed by the city of Ohio, the city of Columbus. So the point to all this is that Bruen is going to start sending waves of litigation across the country, and I believe that a lot of the gun laws, a vast majority of unconstitutional, well, all gun laws are unconstitutional, but the vast majority of gun laws are going to get overturned based on this historical tradition component that came out in the Bruen case.
That is absolutely the gift that keeps on giving. Judge Thomas gave us a wonderful gift in history and tradition.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue for many decades, giving back to us. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Very happy
I want to
about
mention
that.
Dan's article I did post it in the comments section, both in Facebook and on YouTube. So if you're watching us live on either of those channels, you can get the direct link to go to that article.
Yeah, and in that article, there are embedded documents of the court cases. There was a complaint. There was some exhibits, and there was a whole bunch of documents. So you want to go read that article. You'll get a ton of information. It's pretty interesting.
All right, I want to go back. We've got a comment and going. This goes back to the conversation we had earlier about the indoctrination and the punishment of people for their speech or even for their images they use as speech. Michael says, how about students being expelled for using their hands to mimic a gun during recess play? Dan, when I was between 6 and 12 years old in elementary school, cops and robbers was a big thing. Cowboys and Indians, big thing. And yeah, you used your fingers. This was your gun.
I think that we all did that when we were kids. Well, not all of us, obviously, but I did too. We played Cowboys and Indians, and it was just expression. It was fun. These people want to take away fun, which is why they try to ban Nerf guns. I can tell you stories about what they try to do in New York with respect to Nerf guns. But we would grab a stick off of a tree.
Oh yeah,
make it kind of.
That was like your rifle. Gun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we did that all the time. And you know what? didn't grow up to be mass murderers. You know, it was all just fun and games. We knew the difference between toy guns and fake play, and real killing. You know, I guess the thing that really bothers me is that a lot of these anti-gunners believe that they believe that they know what the intentions of these kids are, and they think that by playing with guns, they're going to want to kill people. And I always talk about this on the show, like on the Loaded Mic, we talk about this a lot. It's called projection, and what it was a term coined by Sigmund Freud.
Right.
It's basically when you think you know what someone else is thinking. But it's impossible to know what someone else is actually thinking. All you're really doing is you're taking your own thoughts and you're projecting it onto them, because we don't know what the other person is thinking. But these anti-gunners think they know. And one of the things that they believe is that people will have guns and become violent, or they will play with guns and become violent. And it says more about the anti-gunner than it does about the people being accused.
It does. It does. And I want to take that forward to today. Well, let me get a comment in here quick. Roderick says, we used flashlights back in the 1960s during night battles. Yeah, in the 70s, yeah, it was the same for me. But I want to take that forward all the way to today, and people that are trying to outlaw things like Call of Duty, video games, where the first-person shooter video games like Halo, Call of Duty, that kind of thing, stating that quite often, and not all the time, but quite often, people that do mass shootings are participants in these games. I loved the Call of Duty series of video games. I played it a lot. So did my kids. My kids and I played it together. It promoted bonding between me and my sons. And so, honestly, I think in my case, it was a very positive influence because it encouraged family to interact together. And yet, just as anything, alcohol, it can be a good social thing. You go out with your friends for drinks. You drink too much, you get behind the wheel. It can be a bad thing. But yet we learned our lesson with alcohol. We tried to ban it. It didn't work. We repealed it. I'm afraid that free speech is going to be harmed by this ban mentality.
Yeah, we can't let that happen. We just can't let it happen. We will not turn into China. This is America. We can't let it happen. So, I know people don't like being canceled. They don't like being banned and knocked off their platforms. But we have to stand up and defend our freedom of speech. Now, I wrote an article, and I want to tell you about. We get back to the whole kids playing with guns thing. I wrote an article. I was just pulling it up here. I wrote it at Reactionary Times. If you go to Reactionary Times or you search, it's about the Nerf gun thing. Just search my name and Nerf gun, and you'll find it. The article was Anti-Gun Radicals Reveal Their Psychosis When They Try to Ban Toy Guns. And what it was the New York State Consumer Group, or Consumer, I forget what it's called. Consumer, it's in the article here. Something like Consumer, Empire State Consumer Project. They wanted to ban the Nerf Ultra One blaster. It's like this big machine gun with this big drum. It's colorful. It's got the foam, Nerf bullets. Hysterical. We have it at the studio. And we shoot each other with it all the time, and it's hysterical. We have a blast. And but anyway, they wanted to ban it because they were claiming that playing with these Nerf guns turns children into adult mass murderers. That was the reason for trying to ban it. But after I did some research, I found that there were psychologists who actually came out and said that that's not true at all. Mm-hmm. There's no correlation between playing with guns as a child and becoming violent as an adult. It just doesn't happen. So it's all a bunch of nonsense. It's either the anti-gun people believe this because they can't control their own emotions and they can't control their own actions, or they're just doing it simply to be destructive to our Second Amendment.
Absolutely. Robert says leftists are always this is exactly to your point. Leftists always accuse others of doing what they are actually doing, or maybe they might not be doing it, but they want to. They're they may be contemplating it, or they could see themselves doing it. I could never see myself walking into a mall and just randomly opening fire. I could never see myself doing any of these heinous things that they're trying to so hard to say that I want to do.
Well, and here's the thing, and Robert, that's a great comment, because they accuse others of what they're actually doing, because again, it goes back to that projection piece. They don't understand that they can't actually know what you're thinking. They believe that they know what you're thinking, but it's really their own thoughts. So again, I say, who are we really more concerned with here? You know, we should be more concerned with the people who are making the accusations, because they're the ones who are actually thinking. Here's an example. You ask any conservative, what's the purpose of a gun? And any conservative you talk to, will say that the purpose, aside from hunting and target shooting, the purpose of a gun is to save lives, protect their family, and things like that, protect their house, and basically preserve life. And I challenge anybody watching this, you ask any Democrat, any liberal, what is the purpose of a gun? And they will tell you that they think the purpose of a gun is for killing people and committing acts of violence.
Yep.
They believe this stuff. This is what's in their thought process. Their thought process has been conditioned to the point that they can't understand the other perspective. This is the scary brainwashing that we're now dealing with, that's been going on for decades. This is the stuff that I talk about in my book series, Good Gun, Bad Guy. So we can understand how their minds work. And once we do, and we understand some of this stuff, we can actually either help them, which a few of them can be helped, or defeat them. And most of them need to be defeated in this argument.
Yeah. And I did on the Facebook and YouTube streams, the link to that article you've been talking about, put it back up on the screen. The link is right there, both on Facebook and on YouTube.
Oh, so thank you.
You can get to that article. Dan, we've completely blown through our time, plus a little bit. If people want to catch your radio show or read your books, how can they do that?
Easy. Go to goodgunbadguy.com for the book series. goodgunbadguy.com, and go to loadedmike.com. You'll see it down underneath my name, loadedmike.com. And you can, and please subscribe to the show, because now we're trying to rebuild our audience that we had over at YouTube on Rumble. So I really would appreciate the follows, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and I promise you will have fun on this show. We have an absolute blast on this show. We talk a lot about Second Amendment stuff, and we do get into politics of the day. My co-hosts John Chair and Anthony Diso are an absolute riot. And it's just a lot of fun. And the Christmas episode is there with Charlie Cook and John Petrolino. And now, just posted today, is the banned episode that YouTube that got us banned off YouTube. So you can actually see that episode. It was with Chris Regard.
Aren't you? Are maybe? How do I put this? Is it possible that they just didn't like you smoking cigars? They were projecting that cigars are phallic symbols, and
maybe yeah, I don't know, but we don't actually smoke cigars on the show, although we should. I think that'd be kind of fun. When Charlie and John Petrolino were in the studio, we were out in the green room, and we were smoking cigars, and just just had a lot of fun. So check out the show, loadedmike.com, over at Rumble.
Very cool. On my end, I want to ask everybody, please do come back tomorrow and Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time. We will be having regular bullet shows. Saturday, Christmas Eve, there is no weekend bullet show this week. Saturday, New Year's Eve, there's no weekend bullet show next week, because I've done this before. If you happen to be trying to broadcast on a holiday, absolutely nobody shows up, and you don't get much on the for downloads or views afterwards. So I'm just gonna everybody will have I hope have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year this year, but I'm not gonna be on the air during those days. I'm gonna actually take 2 real weekends off these coming weekends. So that, I believe, is gonna do it today. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for commenting. We've gotten we've gotten more comments on this episode than most 2 episodes combined. Thank you for that. And please do come join us. We'll see you next time.